I embarked on a new chapter of my life, stepping into the shoes of a caretaker for the house that once belonged to a kind old man, my father. This story begins when my husband, Samuel, boldly declared that the family home was now ours, alongside his parents, right after my beloved father passed away. "This is our home now, understand?" he proclaimed with undue arrogance. These words, so lacking in depth, made me laugh in disbelief. Little did Samuel know, this was the start of my comeback, a journey that would eventually humble him and his family. My name is Nancy, and for the longest time, it was just my father and me. My mother had passed away when I was in high school, leaving my father to raise me with all the love and care in the world. He was everything to me. As he aged, especially after turning 80, my concerns for him grew. I discussed with Samuel the idea of us moving in with my dad to provide him with support and company. Samuel agreed, seeing the practical benefits. Despite my father's initial hesitation, fearing he might become a burden to our life together, he was ultimately persuaded when he saw how much it meant to me. "Are you sure this won't complicate your lives?" he asked with a concerned tone, but after assuring him of our decision, he blessed our move with a smile. The moving day was a whirlwind of emotions and boxes. My father, ever so thoughtful, prepared warm coffee for Samuel and me after we settled in a bit. This small gesture reminded me of the warmth of our family home. Samuel even suggested I quit my job to devote more time to caring for my dad, highlighting that it would ease our financial burden since we'd be saving on rent. Though surprised, I pondered over his suggestion, recognizing the potential benefits, but also wary of becoming too dependent on him financially. A month into our new living arrangement, Samuel brought up the idea of me quitting my job again. This time, it felt different. Our shared household duties, combined with my dad's eagerness to help, made life significantly easier. However, noticing how my dad still took on many household chores, I felt guilty for adding to his load. Maybe quitting my job wasn't such a bad idea after all, I thought. It would allow me to give back to the man who had given me so much love and support throughout my life. "I think I might just do that," I finally conceded, acknowledging the financial weight it would place on Samuel. But he brushed off my concerns, reassuring me that everything would be fine. This new chapter, albeit unexpected, brought us closer as a family, teaching us the value of support, sacrifice, and love in ways we hadn't imagined. I made a significant decision to leave my job behind, focusing instead on the responsibilities at home. My father initially encouraged me to continue working, willing to take on household duties himself. However, after I expressed a strong desire to manage the chores and spend more quality time with him, he supported my choice. This allowed me to dedicate more time to my father and find fulfillment in our daily routines. But as time went by, the dynamics within our home began to shift subtly. Samuel's return from work grew later each evening, often after my father had retired to bed. The family dinners that once brought us together became infrequent events. Even when we did share a meal, Samuel's demeanor had changed. "Can you keep it down while I'm eating?" he'd say, a stark contrast to his usual self, especially noticeable when it was just the three of us. I wondered if my decision to quit working had placed an unintended strain on him, leading me to offer apologies for any perceived inconvenience. One evening, as I was about to prepare Samuel's usual drink following dinner, he abruptly left the table, mentioning he was off for a bath with a sharp tone, leaving the room with a slam. This pattern of behavior continued, with Samuel often coming home late, and sometimes not at all, without a word of explanation. Concerned by his uncharacteristic tardiness, I reached out to him, only to be met with a terse text that did little to ease my worry. Samuel mentioned being on a business trip, a sudden revelation that left me puzzled and slightly hurt. Why hadn't he informed me earlier? Opting not to press the issue for fear of further tension, I simply inquired about his return, receiving no reply. Samuel's mysterious business trips became more frequent, and he seldom shared his plans or whereabouts. This secrecy troubled my father as well, who noticed a change but received nothing but reassurances and smiles from Samuel whenever concerns were voiced. As Samuel's absences grew longer, and our interactions more strained, doubts began to creep into my mind. Could there be someone else? My suspicions were further stirred by an unexpected message from my mother-in-law, demanding Samuel's company address bluntly. Our relationship with Samuel's parents had been cool at best, given their disapproval of me from the start. Samuel and I had managed to maintain our bond despite their attitude, keeping a polite distance from his family. Responding to her message cautiously, I asked why she needed the information. Her reply over a heated phone call accused me of burdening Samuel with my father's care and neglecting my duties at home. She claimed Samuel was now living with them, a fact that shocked me. This conversation revealed the truth behind Samuel's so-called business trips. He had been staying with his parents, escaping the responsibilities and tensions at home. This revelation forced me to confront the reality of our situation. The distance between Samuel and me had grown, not just physically, but emotionally. Our marriage, once a partnership, now seemed fractured by misunderstandings, external pressures, and a lack of communication. As I pondered these developments, I realized the importance of confronting these issues head-on, seeking a way to mend what had been broken and to understand Samuel's perspective, all while grappling with the unexpected turn our lives had taken. Learning about the narrative spun by my in-laws through Samuel left me heartbroken. Despite Samuel assuring me it was fine to leave my job to be with my father, his actions suggested he harbored different feelings. This revelation brought me to the brink of tears, yet I found myself speechless, only able to provide my mother-in-law with the office address before hanging up to collect my thoughts. As I brewed coffee to soothe my nerves, my father entered the room. Offering him a cup, his acceptance, and subsequent conversation reminded me of the importance of open communication. He reminisced about his younger days with my mother, and how arguments and misunderstandings were part of their journey, yet they always found a way back to each other through honest dialogue. His wisdom was a balm to my troubled heart, inspiring me to seek a sincere conversation with Samuel. Following my father's advice, I reached out to Samuel, only to be met with a dismissive response that talking was too much trouble. This dismissal only fueled my frustration towards him. As Samuel withdrew further, neglecting even our financial commitments, my feelings began to shift, and the thought of divorce crept into my mind. In this turmoil, tragedy struck. My father collapsed and was hospitalized, his prognosis grim. The weight of this news, coupled with Samuel's continued indifference, broke me. I tried to maintain hope in my father's presence, but the reality of his condition and Samuel's heartless email, suggesting I fend for myself using my father's pension, shattered any remnants of affection I had for him. Alone and overwhelmed, I found solace in preparing for my inevitable return to the hospital, clinging to the fleeting moments I had left with my father. Despite the crushing loneliness of facing these challenges without Samuel, a surprising piece of potentially positive mail provided a glimmer of hope amidst my despair. My father's passing marked the end of an era, leaving me to navigate the aftermath enveloped in grief, yet fortified by the love and lessons he imparted. The funeral came and went without a sign of Samuel or his family, a stark reminder of the chasm that had formed between us. Just when I thought I could begin to heal and move forward, Samuel's unexpected return, casually acknowledging my father's death as if nothing had happened, ignited a fierce anger within me. Yet, confronting him felt futile, a waste of the strength and resilience my father had instilled in me. In the face of loss and betrayal, I stood at a crossroads, ready to forge a new path based on the values and love my father had always shown me, leaving behind the shadows of a marriage that had lost its way. Taking a moment to steady my nerves, I faced Samuel with a calm demeanor that belied the storm of emotions within me. "What do you want? And why are you bringing all these things here?" I questioned, my voice even. Samuel's reply, laden with entitlement, struck a nerve. "I'm your husband, aren't I? And this stuff is for my parents," he declared, as if the title and the actions that followed were justified by mere association. The word husband felt foreign coming from Samuel, a stark contrast to his recent behavior. His claim bewildered me. How could someone who had voluntarily left, ceased to support us financially, and lived without care now lay claim to such a role in my life? I was so taken aback that words escaped me. Samuel mistook my silence for something else, arrogantly suggesting that I was overwhelmed by his return. He then unveiled a shocking revelation, admitting his initial disdain for living with my father and his calculated move to make us dependent on him, all to secure the house for himself. This confession left me reeling, a mix of anger and disbelief coursing through me. The man I had married had become unrecognizable, his actions unfathomable. As Samuel outlined his twisted plan, pride in his cunning apparent, my heart sank further. The notion that he had orchestrated our hardship as part of a scheme to claim my family home was beyond reprehensible. Yet he admitted to underestimating my resolve, assuming I wouldn't dare to end our marriage regardless of his absence. Samuel's smug demeanor as he announced his intention to move in with his parents, boasting about the house's value, was the final straw. His lack of morality, likely a reflection of his upbringing, was clear. But as he stood there, expecting me to be devastated by his announcement, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of his plan and his ignorance of reality. My laughter seemed to confound Samuel, who couldn't grasp the reason behind my amusement. In that moment, revealing the truth to him felt almost cathartic. I informed him, between laughs, that the house was, in fact, mine, and that our marital ties were severed, rendering any claims he had null and void. Samuel, utterly bewildered, hastily called his mother for clarification, only to have his confusion compounded. Over the phone, it became evident that he was unaware of the legal steps I had taken. The filled-out divorce papers his mother had sent, intended as a manipulative tool, had been promptly submitted by me, turning their scheme on its head. The revelation that the divorce was finalized, much to Samuel's dismay, underscored the end of our tumultuous relationship. His plan, built on deceit and manipulation, had crumbled. In its place stood a newfound sense of liberation for me, a stark reminder of the strength and resolve I possessed, qualities my father had nurtured in me throughout my life. As Samuel grappled with the reality of his actions and their unintended consequences, I was ready to move forward, unencumbered by the weight of his betrayal. Discovering Samuel's intent to divorce, albeit inadvertently through his mother's machinations, was unexpectedly gratifying. At a time when I was already contemplating ending our marriage, receiving the divorce papers felt like a twisted stroke of luck. Samuel, caught off guard by the reality of our separation, frantically worried about the division of assets, particularly the house he assumed he had rights to. I corrected his misconceptions, stating clearly that the property, belonging to my father at the time of our divorce, was not subject to division. Samuel's baseless claims about my premarital savings being part of the division were also dismissed. Watching him struggle to respond, I felt a momentary urge to mock his desperation, but chose to maintain my composure, suggesting he remove his belongings to avoid legal action for trespassing. After Samuel's departure, I performed a small ritual to cleanse my home and sought solace in the thought of my parents watching over me, perhaps together again in another place. This notion helped ease the sting of loneliness as I embarked on a new chapter, diving into the job market with newfound determination. A friend's timely referral led me to a promising job opportunity, which I secured with ease, marking a fresh start. Samuel's subsequent attempts to reconcile, communicated through a series of melodramatic emails, did little but provide comic relief for my colleagues and me. His romantic musings, once potentially moving, now served as nothing more than fodder for jokes within my new work environment. Unaffected by his persistence, I maintained a firm stance of silence, focusing instead on my career and personal growth. However, Samuel's audacity reached new heights when he appeared at my doorstep, pleading for assistance after his family's reckless decision to sell their home in anticipation of moving into mine. His pleas fell on deaf ears. His predicament was a direct consequence of his actions and decisions. The police's intervention removed him from my property, but the drama didn't end there. Samuel's parents also began to reach out, their messages oscillating between demands and pleas for help, blaming me for their current misfortune. Their situation, while unfortunate, was not my burden to bear. The choices they made, driven by greed and manipulation, had led them to their current state. Their appeals, whether through emails or phone calls, found no sympathy from me. The coldness they perceived was merely a reflection of the boundaries I had firmly established. The house, a symbol of my independence and strength, remained rightfully mine, untainted by their deceitful schemes. As I navigated through these challenges, I drew strength from the love and values instilled in me by my parents, moving forward with my life unencumbered by the shadows of a past best left behind. In the wake of my father's passing, Samuel's family tried to exploit the situation by suggesting that any inheritance I received meant I should financially support them, especially after they quit their jobs in anticipation of moving into my home. Their presumption infuriated me. They seemed to believe their desires would naturally align with reality. Faced with their audacious demands and insinuations, my frustration reached a boiling point. Despite considering a change in my contact information to escape their incessant badgering, I opted against incurring any expenses because of them and chose to block Samuel and his family's contacts instead, hoping for peace. However, that peace proved elusive. Samuel's family, undeterred by my attempts to sever communication, appeared at my doorstep, pleading for assistance and even proposing reconciliation, as if it could erase their prior manipulations. Their relentless doorbell ringing and knocking pushed me to the edge, prompting me to call the police once more. But before the authorities arrived, an unexpected Nancy intervened. A man familiar yet hard to place at first confronted Samuel's family outside my home, chiding them for their nuisance and public disturbance. His defense caught Samuel's family off guard, leading to a swift dispersal of the gathering neighbors once the police took the intrusive family away. Later, the same man, revealed to be Frank, my long-lost childhood friend, rang my doorbell. His timely appearance and intervention felt like a serendipitous turn of events. Frank, who had moved away during our elementary years to pursue sports, had returned to the neighborhood. His recognition and immediate support in the face of Samuel's family's audacity was a much-needed reminder of genuine friendship and solidarity. We reminisced about old times and caught up on the years gone by, with Frank expressing his condolences for my father's passing, a gesture that touched me deeply. Reconnecting with Frank not only brought back a sense of security but also reignited cherished memories of our shared past. His willingness to stand by me against Samuel's family's harassment was a testament to the enduring nature of true friendship. Amid the chaos that had enveloped my life, Frank's return and support symbolized a beacon of hope and strength, reminding me that even in the darkest times, we are never truly alone. Discovering a Nancy and Frank, someone from my past who shared treasured memories, brought unexpected warmth to my life during tumultuous times. This feeling of camaraderie was soon tested by a bewildering letter from a supposed lawyer found amidst my daily mail, accusing me of infidelity during my marriage and demanding compensation. Accompanied by an email that seemed more like a threat than a professional correspondence, it was evident that Samuel's family was behind this far-fetched scheme. Armed with skepticism, I took the documents to a legitimate lawyer, who quickly debunked them as forgeries. The so-called legal threats were baseless, a desperate attempt by Samuel's family to intimidate me. Yet, instead of outright dismissing their claims, I chose to engage, challenging their accusations and highlighting the absurdity of their emotional damage, argument without any tangible evidence. My response, hinting at the serious legal consequences of impersonating a lawyer, silenced their initial bravado. Their subsequent admission of being moved by my sincerity and considering dropping the lawsuit was met with my indifference and readiness to contest their false claims in court. This marked the end of our email exchanges, but not the end of their attempts to confront me. One night, their desperation peaked as they arrived at my doorstep, pleading for leniency and fearing legal retribution. My patience, worn thin by their relentless harassment and the disruption of my peace, finally snapped. The sight of me, furious and armed with my father's wooden sword for defense, was enough to instill fear and prompt an immediate retreat, especially as police, alerted by concerned neighbors, arrived to defuse the situation. Supported by Frank, who had witnessed their ongoing harassment, I took the necessary legal steps to ensure my safety and hold Samuel's family accountable. A restraining order was promptly issued, providing a much-needed barrier against their intrusions. The incident, captured and shared online, exposed their antics to the wider community, leaving them in an awkward and isolated position. In the aftermath, Frank's presence became a constant source of support and joy. His confession of feelings, months after our reunion, blossomed into a relationship filled with laughter, kindness, and mutual respect. Each day with Frank reaffirmed my belief in the serendipitous connections life offers, possibly a gift from my father, guiding me toward happiness and away from the shadows of my past.